Good morning, family. I want you to hear me today because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is preparing something big for you. And if you've been feeling a stirring in your spirit, if you've been sensing that God is up to something greater, then let me assure you, He is. When God is about to give you something big, there will be signs. Let me start by telling you something important. God doesn't give us the big blessings right away. No, He works in a way that we may not fully understand at the time, but when we look back, it's clear that He was preparing us every step of the way. Just like a gardener who works the soil, carefully tending to each seed before it sprouts, God works in our lives in seasons of preparation. These seasons are often quiet and unnoticed, but they are incredibly significant. You see, the preparation is not just about what's happening around you, it's about what's happening inside you. God doesn't rush His work, and He doesn't give us something we're not ready to handle. So when you find yourself in a season of waiting, in a season where it feels like nothing is happening, understand that God is doing a deep internal work in you. He's shaping your heart, strengthening your spirit, and building your character. He's making sure that when the blessing comes, you'll be able to handle it without losing your foundation. I remember a time in my own life when I was praying earnestly for direction. I was hungry for God's guidance, desperate for clarity on the next steps He wanted me to take. And do you know what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I prayed, I fasted, I read scripture, but there was silence. I'll be honest with you, I started to get frustrated. Why wasn't God answering me? Why wasn't He speaking? But in the silence, God was doing something deep within me. He was purifying my heart, teaching me patience and reminding me that His timing is perfect. He was showing me that I didn't need to rush the process, that when He was ready, He would reveal His plan, but until then, I needed to learn how to trust Him more. And sure enough, when the time came for Him to reveal His will, it was clear, everything fell into place, and I could see that He had been preparing me all along. In those quiet seasons, don't think that God isn't at work. He's preparing you. You might not feel like it, and it might not look like it, but God is planting seeds in your heart that will sprout at just the right time. You are being shaped, refined, and prepared for the blessings that are coming. And when they do come, you'll be ready, not just because you have the skills or the resources, but because you've developed the character to steward that blessing well. So embrace teeth. Quiet moments. Know that God is at work, and when He's ready, He will make His plan clear to you. But here's where it gets real. When God is about to bless you with something big, He will disrupt your comfort zone. You see, we all love comfort. We like things the way they are, familiar, safe, predictable. But let me tell you, God is not in the business of keeping you comfortable. When He's getting ready to elevate you, He will make you uncomfortable. And it's not because He's being harsh. It's because He loves you enough to push you out of your limitations, to stretch you into something you never thought possible. Think about the Israelites. They were living in Egypt under harsh oppression and slavery. Yet, despite their suffering, they had a certain routine, a kind of comfort in their bondage. They knew the hardships, but they also knew the daily grind. When God sent Moses to deliver them, He wasn't just delivering them from Egypt. He was delivering them from their comfort zones. He was calling them out into the wilderness, a place that was unfamiliar, a place that demanded faith, and a place where they would have to trust God in ways they never had before. I want you to picture this for a moment. You've been in Egypt for so long, you've grown accustomed to the heat, the labor, and the oppression. It's hard, it's painful, but it's also familiar. And then one day, God shows up and says, I have something better for you, but you've got to step out of the place you've known, out of the place that's holding you back. That's what God will do when He's about to bless you. He'll stir up discomfort in your life. You'll feel like everything is being shaken, like the foundations are shifting beneath you. You might even start asking, why is this happening to me? Why can't things just stay the same? But the truth is, if God were to leave you in that place of comfort, you would never grow. You would never step into the fullness of what He has prepared for you. I know from my own journey that stepping out of my comfort zone has always been the hardest part. Every time God has called me to something new, I've faced a season of discomfort. I've had to step into unknown territory, whether it was a new ministry, a new opportunity, or a new challenge. At first, I felt the tension. I resisted. I wanted to stay in the comfortable, predictable space where I knew what was coming next. But every single time I surrendered and stepped out of my comfort zone, I've seen God move in ways I never imagined. The discomfort was a sign that he was doing something new. It was a sign that he was getting ready to expand my capacity for his blessing. God will disrupt your peace. He'll shake up your plans, rearrange your priorities, and stir things up in your life so that you're forced to trust him in ways you haven't before. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. You might feel overwhelmed, but that's the point. God wants you to lean on him. He wants you to realize that you can't do it on your own. He's calling you into a season of faith, a season where you rely on him to take you to the next level. So when you find yourself in a place where everything is unsettled, where the familiar seems to be falling away, know this: God is moving you to something greater. Don't fight it. Don't try to go back to what's comfortable. Embrace the discomfort, because it's the very thing that will take you to the next level. The best is yet to come, but you can't get there without first stepping out of what's familiar. God is stretching you, preparing you for what you couldn't even imagine on your own. And when you finally step into the blessing he's prepared, you'll look back and realize that the discomfort was just the beginning of something beautiful. As you move through these seasons of discomfort and uncertainty, one of the most powerful ways God shows you that he's about to give you something big is through confirmation. He doesn't just expect you to blindly walk forward. He will make it clear, often in ways that only he can, that you are on the right path. God is faithful to confirm his calling in your life when the time is right. But you have to be paying attention. He speaks in whispers, through scriptures, through people, through circumstances, and sometimes even through an unexpected moment of peace or understanding. I remember a time in my own life when I was at a crossroads, unsure of which direction God wanted me to go. I prayed for clarity, and in that season of uncertainty, I began to notice signs. The first sign was a scripture that leapt off the page to me, one I had read many times before, but this time it spoke directly to my heart. I didn't just read it. It felt like God was speaking to me through those words. And as I prayed about it, I reached out to a mentor, someone I trusted, and they shared a word with me that was so specific to my situation, it almost felt like they had been reading my journal. It wasn't just coincidence, it was confirmation. But it didn't stop there. The circumstances around me began to shift, aligning in ways that were too perfect to be dismissed as random. Things started falling into place. Opportunities began opening up. People I hadn't heard from in years suddenly reappeared in my life, offering support and wisdom at just the right moment. And with each confirmation, my faith grew stronger. I could see that God was indeed leading me step by step towards the plan he had for my life. I want to encourage you today, when God is about to give you something big, you will begin to see these confirmations. It could be in the form of a prophetic word, a timely message, or a dream that resonates deeply within your spirit. Maybe it's a conversation with a friend that seems to echo the very things you've been praying about. Or perhaps it's an unexpected opportunity that opens up right when you need it most. God knows how to get your attention, and he will do it in a way that is unmistakable. But here's the key. You have to be tuned in. It's easy to miss these confirmations if you're distracted or if you're looking for them in the wrong places. Sometimes we expect these signs to come in grand, dramatic ways, but often they are subtle, quiet nudges that require you to pause, reflect, and listen carefully. God will speak to your heart, but you need to create space to hear him. And he won't give you the full picture all at once. Instead, he will give you just enough to move you forward in faith, piece by piece, leading you towards the bigger picture he has for you. So as you navigate through this season, look for the signs. Be alert to the way God is confirming his calling on your life. And don't be afraid to step out in faith when you see those confirmations. Trust that God is directing your steps, that he's aligning everything in his perfect timing, and that when he's ready to give you something big, he will make sure you know it. Stay faithful, keep seeking, and know that God is actively working behind the scenes to bring his plans to fruition. But don't think for a second that everything will be smooth sailing when God is about to bless you with something big. When you step into the plan he has for you, opposition is inevitable. As soon as you begin to move in the direction God is calling you, expect the enemy to show up with resistance. He doesn't want you to walk in the fullness of God's blessing, so he will try to derail your progress. The devil will plant seeds of doubt, fear, and insecurity in your mind, trying to convince you that you're not qualified, that you're not worthy, or that it's too late. It'll make you second guess the very calling that God has placed on your life. But I'm here to remind you, opposition is not a sign that God isn't with you. It's actually a confirmation that you are moving in the right direction. When I think about opposition, I can't help but think of the story of David and Goliath. Here was a young shepherd boy chosen by God to be the future king of Israel, standing in front of a giant, literally and figuratively. Goliath was everything David wasn't: big, strong, and battle-hardened. But despite all of Goliath's intimidating qualities, David didn't shrink back. He didn't look at the giant and say, "I can't do this." No, David stood in front of that giant and said, "You come at me with a sword and spear, but I come at you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." David didn't focus on the giant in front of him. He focused on the God who was with him. That's the attitude you need to have when opposition comes your way. When the enemy rises up, when the obstacles seem insurmountable, you have to stand firm in your faith and declare that the God who is with you is greater than anything you're facing. Opposition will come, but it cannot block the plan of God. The enemy will try to discourage you, to make you doubt your abilities, to put roadblocks in your path. But remember this: what God has ordained, no one can block. The enemy's tactics may slow you down for a season, but they will not stop you from walking into the blessing that God has prepared for you. I've faced my own share of opposition throughout my journey. There have been times when the road felt too tough, when I questioned whether I was capable of handling the challenges that came with the calling on my life. I've had people tell me that I wasn't equipped, that I wasn't ready, that I didn't have what it took. And in those moments, the enemy tried to make me feel small, tried to make me feel like I was not enough. But what I've learned is that it's in those moments of opposition that God shows up the strongest. When we are at our weakest, he is at his strongest. When we face the greatest opposition, we see the greatest manifestation of God's power in our lives. Think about the Apostle Paul. He was called to spread the gospel to the Gentiles, a massive calling that would change the world. But the opposition he faced was relentless: beatings, imprisonments, shipwrecks, and betrayals. Yet Paul didn't quit. He didn't back down. Instead, he said, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Every time the enemy tried to knock him down, God lifted him up. And every time opposition came, it only propelled him further into the plan that God had for him. His opposition was a stepping stone, not a set. And so when you face opposition, when you find yourself battling doubt, fear, and discouragement, don't think it's a sign that you've done something wrong. It's not a sign that God is punishing you or that you've missed the mark. It's a sign that you are walking in the will of God, and the enemy is doing everything he can to try to stop you. But take heart, your victory is already secured in Christ. The challenges you face today are not permanent, they are temporary. And when you push through them, when you keep pressing forward despite the resistance, you'll find that God's plan for you is bigger and better than anything the enemy can throw at you. So don't shrink back when opposition comes. Don't let the obstacles in your path make you doubt what God has spoken over your life. Stand firm, take heart, and remember that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. What God has for you is yours, and nothing, no matter how great the opposition, can stop it. Keep moving forward in faith, knowing that the greater the opposition, the greater the breakthrough on the other side. Finally, when the time comes for God to release his blessing upon you, you will begin to see the manifestation of his glory. It will be undeniable. When God is about to give you something big, It's not just for you. It's for his name to be glorified. His work in your life will be so evident that no one will be able to ignore it. It will be a testament to his faithfulness, his power, and his divine timing. This is what makes the waiting, the discomfort, and the opposition all worth it. Because when God shows up, he doesn't just show up with a small blessing. He shows up in a way that makes everyone take notice. I think about Joseph. His life was a perfect example of how God's glory is manifested through the journey. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into prison, and forgotten by those he helped. It seemed like his life was filled with setback after setback, but all of that was preparation. All of that was positioning him for the moment when God's glory would be revealed. And when Joseph stood before Pharaoh interpreting his dreams and revealing God's plan, the blessing that followed wasn't just about Joseph. It was about the world being saved from famine through the wisdom that God had placed in him. The glory of God was made known through his life. God's blessings don't just exist to benefit us, they exist to point others back to him. When God elevates you, when he blesses you beyond measure, it is meant to be a beacon of hope for those around you. Your breakthrough is not just for your own joy, it's for others to see what God can do when we remain faithful, when we trust him through every trial, and when we walk in his purpose. I can speak from my own experience that when God's glory is made manifest in your life, it is not something you can take credit for. It's not about your abilities, your education, or your connections. It's about his grace, his favor. It's about his supernatural provision. There are moments in life when God moves so powerfully in your life that all you can do is stand back and say, that had to be God. And when that happens, his glory shines through you. People around you will know that it's not by your own strength or wisdom that you've come this far. It is by the hand of God. When God blesses you in such a powerful way, others will look at your life and be drawn to his power. They'll see what he has done for you, and it will inspire them to believe in the possibility of their own breakthroughs. They'll see the impossible become possible, and in that moment, they'll be reminded of the greatness of God. Your blessing will become a testimony for others, a living proof that God is still in the business of performing miracles and fulfilling promises. I've witnessed this in my own journey. I've seen God's provision in times when I had no idea how the next step was going to unfold. I've seen his faithfulness when everything around me seemed uncertain. And every time God has moved in a mighty way in my life, it's always been a moment that pointed people back to him. Every breakthrough I've experienced has been a reflection of his glory, not my own. And when his glory is revealed through your life, it leaves an imprint on those around you, showing them that God is real, that he's alive, and that he's actively working in the lives of his people. When God's glory is made manifest, it often comes with a sense of awe and wonder. You find yourself in a place where you can't explain what happened, you can't take credit for it, and you can't help but give all the glory back to him. And that's the beauty of it. Because as his glory is revealed in your life, you're able to stand as a witness to his goodness. And it is in those moments that you realize this: the blessing is never just about you. It's always about bringing glory to the one who is the source of every good thing in your life. So when the blessing comes, when God's glory is revealed, don't keep it to yourself. Share your testimony. Let others see what God has done for you and encourage them to believe that he can do it for them too. When God shows up and shows out in your life, let it be a living, breathing reminder that he is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or think. As you journey toward the blessing God has prepared for you, one thing that becomes increasingly clear is that his timing is always perfect. God's timing is never early, and it's never late. It's always exactly when you need it to be. We often want things to happen on our schedule, according to our desires, and when we think we're ready. But the truth is, God's timing is not governed by our impatience or our understanding. It's rooted in his wisdom and his infinite knowledge of what we need and when we need it. And so often the wait is part of the preparation. There was a time in my life when I felt like I was ready for the next level. I had the vision, the desire, and the energy to move forward. But when I look back now, I can see that I wasn't really ready. Not in the way I thought I was. I wanted things to happen right away, and I didn't understand why God wasn't opening doors as quickly as I thought he should. I prayed, I worked, and I did everything I thought I needed to do. Yet God didn't move as quickly as I expected. And then one day it clicked. God wasn't saying no, he was saying, wait, trust my timing. You're not fully ready yet. And sure enough, as I moved through that waiting season, I grew stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the challenges ahead. I was learning patience. I was learning how to handle setbacks. I was being shaped in ways I couldn't have imagined before. If God had given me the blessing too soon, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I would have missed the lessons that were being taught during that waiting period. In retrospect, I can see how much he was preparing me. God is never in a hurry. He's not rushed like we are. In our culture, we've grown accustomed to fast food, instant messaging, and quick results. We think that if we work hard enough or pray hard enough, we should see immediate results. But God's kingdom doesn't operate that way. He's not concerned with our timeline. Think about Abraham. God made a promise to him that he would be the father of many nations, but it didn't happen right away. In fact, it took years, decades, in fact, before the promise came to pass. Abraham and Sarah had to wait a long time, and in that waiting, they made mistakes, tried to take matters into their own hands, and doubted God's timing. But in the end, God's promise came to fruition, and Isaac was born when the timing was just right. Not when Abraham and Sarah thought it should be, but when God's timing was perfect. God has a perfect timeline for your life too. You may not understand the wait, but know that he is never wasting time. He's preparing you, molding you, and positioning you for the blessing that's coming. There are things he's working on behind the scenes, orchestrating events, aligning people, and preparing your heart for what's to come. You might be frustrated in the waiting, but trust me, God's timing will not disappoint you. He opens that door, it will be exactly the right time, and you'll be able to step through it knowing that he has been with you every step of the way. I've seen this truth play out in countless situations. There were times when I thought I was ready for a particular opportunity, only to be met with delay or rejection. But later, when that opportunity came around again, I saw how much more prepared I was to take it on. I'd grown, matured, and learned invaluable lessons that I would have missed if I had rushed ahead of God's plan. And I'm not just talking about opportunities in ministry or career. This applies to every area of life. God's perfect timing is at work in your relationships, your dreams, your personal growth, and your calling. His timing is something you can trust even when it doesn't make sense in the moment. When you feel like the waiting is getting too hard, remind yourself that God is doing something in you that is worth the wait. He's building a foundation that will support the blessing he's preparing for you. Don't get discouraged in the wait. Don't let impatience steal your peace. Instead, rest in the assurance that God is in control. When he says it's time, everything will fall into place in ways you could never have orchestrated on your own. God's timing is the greatest gift he can give us. It may not always align with our desires, but it always aligns with his perfect plan. The waiting is never in vain. Keep trusting his timing, because when the blessing finally comes, you'll realize that it arrived at just the right moment. It's all part of God's beautiful, perfect plan for your life. And when it arrives, you'll be ready, and you'll be able to give him all the glory for the timing, the provision, and the blessing that he has so perfectly orchestrated. As you walk through the journey of waiting and trusting, one of the most powerful things you will experience is the refining of your character. When God is preparing you for something big, he doesn't just prepare your circumstances. He prepares you. He molds you, shapes you, and refines your character in ways that are necessary for the blessing to come to fruition. You see, God knows that if he gives you the blessing before you're ready, it might destroy you, or you might squander it. He knows that he must build you up from the inside out so that when the blessing comes, you can handle it with the maturity, wisdom, and grace it requires. I think about gold. Gold doesn't just appear in its beautiful, pure form. It must go through a process of refinement. It's heated to extreme temperatures, and the impurities rise to the surface where they can be removed. This process is not easy, but it's necessary to reveal the true value of the gold. In the same way, God allows us to go through the fire, not because he's punishing us, but because he's refining us. He's purging the impurities from our hearts, teaching us patience, kindness, humility, and perseverance. He's preparing us to carry the weight of the blessing he wants to pour into our lives. There was a season in my life when I felt like I was going through a fire. Everything seemed to be a struggle. Every step forward felt like 2 steps back. I was being stretched, challenged, and at times I felt overwhelmed by the weight of it all. But looking back, I can see that God was refining me during that season. He was teaching me to rely on him more than I had ever done before. He was showing me that my own strength wasn't enough, but his grace was sufficient for me. He was shaping my character in ways that I never would have been able to understand if I had not walked through that season. In that process, I learned something crucial. God isn't just concerned with what he's going to do for you. He's deeply concerned with who you're becoming in the process. It's about character development. It's about spiritual maturity. It's about learning to love unconditionally, to forgive quickly, to trust even when you can't see the whole picture. The Bible says that we are being conformed into the image of Christ, and that doesn't just happen overnight. It happens in the refining moments of life when we are challenged, when we are tempted, when we face setbacks. These are the moments when our character is tested, and they are the very moments God uses to shape us. Look at Joseph once more. God gave him a dream, a vision of greatness, but Joseph didn't walk into that greatness immediately. First, he was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. He spent years in prison, yet through all of it, his character was being shaped. Joseph learned patience, humility, and forgiveness. He learned to trust God even when the circumstances didn't make sense. And when he finally rose to a place of power in Egypt, he was able to manage that power with integrity and wisdom because God had refined his character in the process. God does the same with us. The blessings he has for us are not just about the material things or the opportunities. They are about how he's using those things to shape us into the people he created us to be. If we rush through the process or try to skip the hard parts, we miss the chance to become the person God intends for us to be. The process isn't easy, but it's essential. God knows that when he gives us the blessing, we need to be equipped with the right heart and the right mindset to handle it. Without character, the blessing can become a curse. But with character, the blessing becomes a platform for God's glory. During these refining seasons, it's easy to become discouraged. You might feel like you're stuck or like the promise will never come to pass. You might wonder why God is allowing you to go through such difficulty. But know this, he's refining you, not to hurt you, but to prepare you. Every challenge you face, every setback, every test is part of his plan to build you into the person who can carry the blessing. You will come out of the fire stronger, purer, and more ready for the greatness he has in store for you. So when you find yourself in the midst of the refining process, don't fight it. Don't resist the work God is doing in you. Instead, lean into it. Trust that he knows exactly what he's doing. He's shaping you into someone who can handle the greatness he's about to release. And when the blessing comes, and it will come, you will look back and realize that the most important thing wasn't the blessing itself. It was the person you became in the process. You'll be able to stand in the fullness of what God has given you and know that he prepared you every step of the way.